I just realized I was muted that whole time. So welcome everyone. Come on in. Sorry about that. How's everyone doing tonight? If you want, you can drop in the chat where you're tuning in from. I'm tuning in from New Jersey today. I'm very excited for today's class. We have a good number of signups, so hopefully everyone will be joining in. Is anyone cooking along today? We got Nashville, North Carolina. Cool. Awesome. I love when everyone's coming in from all over. So this is our third class with the virtual teaching kitchen. And if this is your first one here, just say hi and welcome. I'm excited for you to be here. This has definitely been a learning curve as we started these classes. And you'll even see today we have a little bit different of a setup camera-wise. So you guys can tell me if you like this. I have the chat screen available to me so I can see a little bit easier so we can chat during class. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we do get started. Most of the time, stay muted. If you would like to unmute yourself, just raise your hand and I'll give you that okay. So then you can unmute, talk, add to the conversation. At the end, we'll have a lot of Q&A. So welcome. If you are cooking along, I can't wait. I love this recipe. And I had some prep things to incorporate for the start of this class to make it a little bit easier. But don't worry if you didn't do that yet. I'm going to be providing some nutrition education in the beginning of the class, and then we're going to move on to the cooking. So if you didn't do any of the prep, that's totally fine. You can do that during the education process. So also to let you know, all of these are going to be recorded. So even if you can't make it live, still sign up if it's a recipe or a nutrition topic that you think you'd be interested in. So we have people coming from all over. I love it. So it's like we're all in the kitchen together, kind of, but virtually. So we're all going to cook a nice, healthy, delicious meal. All right. So if you're new here, the way we kind of do the class is we have some slides of nutrition education. So the prep portion that I would love for you guys to start working on ahead of time is to cut your chicken. And I'm going to give you two options depending on how you prefer. You can just slice it thinner and thinner slices horizontally, or you could also cut it into cubes. I've done it both ways. Tonight, I cut it into cubes, so you can do that. It's actually, I find it's easier to fit things in the pan. So if you have a smaller pan, go the cube route. Also, I'm going to ask you to chop and slice your mushrooms. So get that started as we are going through the nutrition education portion. So I should probably introduce myself to the people who are new. I'm Julie. I'm a registered dietitian and a chef. So my passion is to educate about nutrition through food. So this is why these classes are so important to me. And I hope that you continue to come and join in the conversation here. So I encourage everyone to cook along if you can. If you want to watch and cook later, that's totally fine too. All right, so what exactly is Virtual Teaching Kitchen? This is a branch of my business, and I am going to be providing free virtual cooking classes with that nutrition education component. So it's free, making it accessible for all. And again, I hope you join in and you'll be learning something new for cooking-wise and also nutrition-wise. If you aren't following on social media, follow at Virtual Teaching Kitchen. And if you make anything and want to post it and share it, you can hashtag #MadeWithVTK. I'm excited for the 2024 calendar. I'm working on that already. So if you have any topics or types of recipes, just reach out. I would love to add them into the rotation. All right, and we have a special thing for today's class. We are doing a cookbook giveaway. So my friend Jackie Nugent, also a chef who's a dietitian, she wrote the Plant-Based Diabetes Cookbook. And if you stay throughout class today, I will be picking one winner to get this cookbook. So good luck to all. All right, so today's class. Our topic today is diabetes. we are diving into really about managing blood sugars. We're not going to go too deep because we don't have a whole week to be talking about this. So this is just going to be a little introduction, and hopefully classes later will dive a little bit deeper into it. But our recipe today is a creamy Tuscan chicken. And I love this because it is a one-pan dish. So let's talk about diabetes for a little bit. So this is my PSA to everyone to get their annual blood work done. I think it's really important to have these numbers and this data so you can look and notice trends. So you're in the know and empowering yourself to take control of your health. There are 34.2 million people that have diabetes, and that is 10.5% of the US population. And out of those 34.2 million people, 26.9 people are diagnosed, and there's 7.3 million who are undiagnosed. So they're not even aware that they have diabetes. So having that hard data like blood work can be really helpful to evaluate on a regular basis, a yearly basis, and to really see how lifestyle and behavior changes such as cooking healthier and maybe adding more exercise can really make an impact on those numbers. So there is this test, the diabetes risk assessment test, that if you're interested, you can go to that website, and it gives you a couple questions to fill out, and it will help you determine how at risk you are. Maybe you have someone with diabetes runs in your family, or you're a certain ethnicity that will contribute to your risk. So quick thing that we want to review before we dive into more of the food approach is we want to look at the A1C, and that blood work is your hemoglobin A1C. And what that is almost like a snapshot of what 3 months of time of what your blood sugar levels have been doing. I'm sure you've seen people, or you've done a test before where you do your glucose, where you might prick your finger, or your fasting glucose, where you're doing it first thing in the morning. But that's your blood sugar right in that moment. So what you ate could have affected it. If you exercised before, if you're stressed, if you're sick, that's not the big picture. The A1C is looking at that big picture of the average of what 3 months of time your blood sugar has been doing majority of the time. So there are different kinds of diabetes. There's type 1, type 2, gestational, and pre-diabetes. We're mostly going to focus on the pre-diabetes and type 2 today. So pre-diabetes, it's reported that 88 million US adults are estimated to have pre-diabetes. It's when your blood glucose levels are slightly above normal, yet they don't reach the level that is diagnosed for diabetes. If left untreated, 37% of those diagnosed with prediabetes may go on to develop type 2 diabetes within only 4 years. So it's so important, especially when you go to the doctor and they said, oh, you're on the cusp, you're borderline diabetic. You definitely want to know and understand if you are in that pre-diabetes range, because this is the most preventable area where if you make lifestyle changes, it can really support your blood sugar staying in that normal level. And then type 2 diabetes is where your body doesn't use the insulin properly. And while some people can control their blood sugar levels with healthy eating and exercise, others might need medication or insulin to help manage it as well. And working with an endocrinologist is so important if you do have diabetes. So when it comes to nutrition, it's nothing flashy or newsworthy. It's pretty basic. We want to include eating patterns that have whole grains, fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, legumes, low-fat dairy, and limit foods that are high in saturated fat, trans fat, sodium, and added sugars. So it's pretty much your basic diet, and we're going to talk about how to really balance your plate without worrying about counting carbs or counting calories, etc. Because my biggest thing that I always like to talk about is that we eat food, we don't eat numbers. So I want you to really have that better understanding of how to balance your plate visually with colors, with that balanced approach, instead of getting in the weeds of tracking and counting things all day. Because I don't think that's really super sustainable. All right, so in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand, what foods raise your blood sugar levels? Quiz question number 1. What foods are ones contributing to raising your blood sugar level? Processed foods, carbs, fruit, dessert. So the general answer is carbohydrates. So carbohydrates come in many forms. So on this plate here, which food groups contain carbohydrates? So these are our 5 food groups. And if you've never seen this picture before, this is the My Plate. It's just showing you how to eat a balanced plate if you're incorporating all 5 food groups. So out of these food groups, which ones contain carbohydrates?
And make sure you have everything you qualify for in 2020. You can receive more benefits for zero.
So the food groups that contain are grains. Yes, your grains contain carbohydrates. Your fruit contain carbohydrates. Your vegetables contain carbohydrates. Dairy products contain carbohydrates. And your plant-based sources of protein contain carbohydrates. So about 75 to 100% of your plate is contributing to carbohydrates. So when someone says they are on a no carb or low carb diet, that means they're essentially not understanding what carbohydrates are, or literally only eating animal sources of protein. We have 5 food groups for a reason, and we shouldn't eliminate food groups. It's all about the balance when it comes to balancing our blood sugar levels. And we're going to talk deeper a little bit in how to balance each of these food groups, and I have a handout for you later as well to explain it. So what is happening? How are carbs digested? So when a food is eaten and it's digested in the stomach and intestines, where it's broken down into glucose. So all carbohydrates, no matter if it's an apple or bread or cake, those are all carbohydrates, and they convert to glucose, and then they are absorbed into the bloodstream. Glucose then moves into the cells of the body, mainly the muscle cells, and can be used as energy. Each cell has a door, which is known as a receptor, that can allow glucose to enter. However, this door stays locked until the insulin arrives as the key to quote unquote unlock it. So when insulin is present and the door is open, glucose can enter the cell and to be used as fuel. With diabetes, the glucose is unable to travel to the cells due to a lack of insulin or insulin resistance, which I'm sure you've heard that term before, insulin resistance. This means that too much glucose remains in the blood, causing high blood glucose readings. So it's like a locking key. So when the key, the insulin, is having trouble unlocking the lock to open the door, which is the cell. So they're battling. So what's happening is there's that accumulation of too much insulin in your bloodstream, or glucose, in your bloodstream, and has nowhere to go because it's unable to unlock that cell. And over time, that's going to contribute to elevated blood sugar levels. So when it comes to really thinking about how to balance carbohydrates, I like to always draw up this little image here. And again, I'm going to have this as a handout for you, so you don't have to worry about scribbling this down if you don't want to. So anytime you have a carbohydrate, you want to add some fiber to it, some protein to it, and some healthy fats, or just at least 1 or 2 of them to pair with it. You don't always have to have all 3. In a meal, you're more likely to hit that. In a snack, maybe not. But the goal is not to have that carbohydrate alone. Because what happens is if the carbohydrate is alone and there's no fiber, protein, or fat, it's so quickly digested, it goes immediately into your bloodstream and elevates your blood sugar levels. And then you're more likely to have a crash of energy, but also such a dip in your blood sugar that you're going to be craving or needing something for that boost of energy again. And it's this vicious cycle. So for instance, an apple. An apple is a carbohydrate, but an apple also has fiber. So we already have one part checked off, but how can we make this apple a little more balanced if we want to have it as a snack? And this is my favorite snack combo that I eat pretty much every day. What do you think we can add to this apple to make it more balanced? Peanut butter, yes. My favorite food, peanut butter. So now you have an apple and peanut butter. Just also think about if you have just an apple as a snack, are you going to be hungry 20 minutes later, an hour later? Maybe. But if you have an apple and peanut butter, with the carbohydrate and the fiber, you're also adding some protein and some healthy fats. So this is the goal. I want you to envision all your carbohydrates and think, where's a fiber source going to come from? What about a protein source? What about a fat source? We can include that combination. And I see almonds, cheese, question mark. Yes, all of those can work well because you're filling in those gaps that the carbohydrate doesn't all have. That food is not going to be the perfect food to balance your blood sugar. So that's why we pair foods together, and there are multiple food groups to pair together to balance your meals. So at the end, if we have time, I'll pull up the handout, but I go through each of the food groups and I even break it down to make it a little bit easier, even non-starchy vegetables versus starchy vegetables, plant-based sources of protein versus animal sources of protein, to really help you understand that balance for all the different varieties of food in our diet. So I hope this is a little bit of an easier way to really think about how to balance carbohydrates in a meal or a snack, so we don't have to worry so much about counting and worrying about if this is going to spike your blood sugar or not. This is a more of a visual way to help you balance. Plus, once you're adding more food to a snack or a meal by including more food groups, your portion sizes of your carbohydrates might start getting smaller, and that's going to help as well with portion size. So another visual, this is from the American Diabetes Association. It's going back to that same kind of concept, that plate method, but this is more of like a visual for dinner. Making half of your plate non-starchy vegetables, a quarter of your plate, those carbohydrates, it could be the fruit, it could be grains, whatever you think or want, and then a quarter of your plate being protein. By doing this balance, we are officially getting that balance of the carbs, the fiber, the protein, and you're most likely cooking with some form of healthy fat within your dish. So visually, you can look at your dish and you know you're balanced and it's not going to spike blood sugars. And this is where you can visually also see you can fit in any food that you really do enjoy. It's just all about the balance. I will tell you, I'm the first person who, I don't love whole wheat pasta. I will eat white pasta, but if you keep it to that quarter of your plate, you're adding a meatball there, you're adding a big side salad, you can have that balanced plate of white pasta. There's no foods that are off limits. It's really how you balance it. So any questions so far? So if anyone wants to raise their hand, unmute themselves, ask a question, drop a question in the chat. Feel free as we transition into the cooking portion of our class. All right, awesome. All right, so what we have, I hope we have our mise en place ready, meaning all of our ingredients are out. If you haven't yet, cut your chicken. cut your mushrooms, and have everything ready to go. That's what mise en place is called, or that's the term mise en place, is ready to be prepared. So first things first, we are going to start off with our chicken. So I have my pan here, and anytime you are cooking, you want to make sure you are truly getting that transfer of heat done correctly. So I'm turning on my pan, and first things first is we need a hot pan. So I'm going to let this preheat. Then I'm going to add my oil. Then I'm going to add my chicken. You might need to do chicken in 2 batches, just if you don't have enough room. Well, let me just fix the chat here. There we go. All right, so let's see. First thing is I wanted to talk about is I have my chicken here. I cut it into cubes for this recipe. You can do thinner slices. I just like cutting it in smaller pieces just so it cooks faster, because I'm all about getting dinner on the table much easier and quicker. So one tip that I have is I already have my cutting board in the sink here, but this is my designated cutting board for chicken. This will help prevent cross-contamination. You do not want to use your same cutting board. And this is my cutting board that is literally only for chicken. That's all I use it for. You also, another food safety tip is you do not want to wash your chicken under the water. What happens is that water could splatter, get on your countertop, or it could contaminate other food, and we want to avoid any risk of cross-contamination there. All right, so I have a nice hot pan. I'm gonna add a little bit of oil here. And then I'm waiting for my oil to get nice and warm. So if you have, some people don't like the touch of chicken. If you find it to be slimy, that's okay. Pat it with the paper towel, just don't rinse it underwater. So I have my chunks already, or you can do your slices again. And I have this lemon pepper seasoning. So I'm just going to season my chicken here with lemon pepper. If you don't have lemon pepper, just use salt and pepper, totally fine, or any other dried herbs or spices that you like. I just find this fits well really with that Tuscan kind of vibe. All right, my oil is nice and hot. Gonna turn on my little fan here so I don't. So I'm gonna do this in probably 2 batches. And if you hear that sizzle, that's a good sign. That means you waited for your pan to get nice and warm before you are adding it to your pan. Is anyone cooking along with me today? If you are, awesome. I can't wait for you to try this. If you're not, totally cool. You can learn along the way. I'm gonna add a little bit more of that lemon pepper. All right, I'm gonna put this other back to the side for now. We're gonna do this in 2 batches, and we're gonna start the prep of our other ingredients. So I started with our onion already. I have some of it diced, but I want to show you the technique that I like to use to cut my onion to make it easier for you. Oh, awesome. Pamela's going to make the recipe. She's swapping a couple ingredients, but I would love to hear your swap, because that might be something someone else is interested in too. So first thing is first, I have my onion, and I always keep the root end intact. I just cut it in half to start. And you always want to have your flat side down. If you cut off the end there, it's easier for you to peel. Oop, I need to pull one apart here. And you can always save your scraps, because you can accumulate them and it can create a nice stock. Oh, Elizabeth's cooking too. Wonderful. All right. So this little piece is struggling. So we have a nice flat side down. we're first going to create levels. So essentially you are slicing through, but not all the way. And if you see, I'm not sawing at it. It's a nice fluid motion sliding through. So if you see here, we have 2 levels in our onion, and it's staying all intact. Also, if you notice, I'm not playing around with my chicken. I'm kind of leaving it and letting it go. I think a big problem that we all have is we're antsy in the kitchen, or we're waiting to do other things. So we're always moving it around. Just let it sit and do its thing for a little bit. So now we have those ridges, and this will determine how big or small you want your dice. So the tip of my knife is going down into the onion, and slicing down and down. And if you see, this hand is nice and curled in. We don't need a crazy claw, but we just want to tuck in our fingers enough, just so if we do slip, we're going to graze our knuckles and not get our fingertips. So these are starting to brown. I'm just going to give them a little turn here. Not all of them yet, but if your protein is really resistant, it's telling you that it's not ready to be flipped yet. So you can see some of them are much better than others. It's just the heat distribution of my pan here. But they weren't resisting at all. So they were ready to go. All right. So now, back to our onion. We have a grid. Again, everything is intact. You might have a couple flyaways, totally fine. But now we're just going to slice down. If you watch my knife, it's just a nice sliding motion. I'm not going back and forth and just pushing and sliding down. And it really helps if you have a nice, sharp knife. So I got to the end, and I still have a lot of onion, but I can't really slice through as much here. So I'm gonna just turn it on its side, create that nice flat surface again, and just slice as much as I can so there's no waste. Then I had this other random piece that kind of flew out. I'm just gonna give that another slice. So I learned something new from one of my chef friends this week, that apparently if you have lighter eyes, so I have blue eyes, that you tend to cry more when cutting onions because of something about the lens of your eye. It's not as protected. That's what she was trying to explain to me. Not sure how accurate that is, but I mean, I am very sensitive, so I'm believing her in that. All right. Chicken is looking good. So we have our onion. I'm just going to put this aside. When it comes to cooking, a lot of times we are only using like half an onion. If you do that, if you have that in a recipe, just cut the other half and save it for later. If you know you're going to use it, just store it in your fridge. But if not, you can even put it in a freezer safe bag and put it in the freezer, and then you can use it later. Because what happens when we have that half an onion that is just cut and sitting in our fridge? It tends to be forgotten about, and then it goes there to die. We want to keep that onion alive and fresh, and we want to utilize it. All right, so I'm just going to set this aside. I already chopped our mushrooms, but I just want to show you if you are catching up on this step. I'm using a cremini mushroom. I like these because I feel like they just have a little bit of a deeper flavor, like with baby portobello. So I just wanted to show you, sometimes they have like a really dried out woody end. So I'm just going to slice that little bit off. I don't want to slice off the whole stem because we can utilize this and eat this. If it's easier for you to chop, you can take out the stem, chop the stem up first, because then you have a nice flat surface to make easier slices. So again, rocking motion. My knife is never leaving the cutting board. Put that there. All right, I'm gonna check on my chicken. All right, quiz time. What do we cook our chicken to? What temperature do we cook our chicken to? 165, yes. Ding, ding, ding. So you probably know that answer if you've taken a class with me before, with it totally fine. I love it. All right. I have another plate. Where did my other plate go? Here it is. Even if you are a touch under, it's okay. Just because this is going to be cooked again, but we want to get it to almost it's being done. But I have that second batch of chicken that I want to get into the pan here. And there is still enough liquid, there's still enough oil, but if you need a little bit more, you can add a little bit more as well. Those who are cooking along, how are we doing? Are we getting maybe the second half of our chicken in? You can use other proteins for this too. I just find that chicken is a very neutral kind of protein and it just kind of blends well with any flavors. And we're using a chicken breast here because it is less fat. It's the leanest part of the chicken. But a lot of people complain to me, but it dries out. This is a moist cooking technique. So your chicken breasts are going to stay nice and moist and tender because again, we're adding that liquid, we're going to add sauce to it to keep it nice and moist. All right, so my second batch is cooking. Let's keep prepping. I have my garlic here. I have 2 of them peeled already for me, but I'll show you a little tip. When you are trying to get off the skin, if you have a really woody end, sometimes it's even easier if you slice off that little end first, or you can do that after. But people go crazy and like really bang on it. You don't really need to. You just need to apply pressure. So I always tell people just push on it. You'll hear it crack, and it's much safer than if you were to. Oh, this one has actually 2 in here, 3 in here. So I got little ones in here now too. So we got to do that again. And then the skin will come right off. So someone recently in one of my cooking classes was asking me that they're sensitive to garlic and they feel like their food is really bland because they can't have a lot of garlic. If that is you, you can still infuse garlic flavor without actually consuming pieces of garlic. You could use garlic infused olive oil. So you're getting that flavor, that taste, but then you're not consuming the garlic that's making your stomach upset. All right, so I have my little cloves of garlic. And we're just going to start by breaking them down. I have it as flat as I can get it, and just going to create nice little slices with each clove. And then you create a nice little pile. And this is what I call the fan motion. So my hand is on here. You can do your fingers or your palm and fanning my fingers up so they're nice and safe and out of the way. And you see the motion of my knife is just going back and forth over it. The finer you cut your garlic, the more intense flavor it's going to be. So if you want it a little bit more mellow, you can do slices or just a rough chop. But the finer you make it, the more intense that flavor. If you already have pre-chopped garlic, totally fine. But I would encourage you to use a little bit more than what the recipe calls for, just because it's pre-chopped, it kind of starts to lose its flavor as it ages. One little tip here for our garlic too, if you really want an intense flavor, you can sprinkle a little bit of salt on your pile now and continue to do that fan motion. Those salt crystals are actually going to help break it down even further, so you have even a finer dice. Just a little fun little tip there for you. Right? So that is prepped and ready to go. Let me just check on my chicken. Oh, this one is getting a little bit browner than the other one, which is totally fine. I also joke with some of my chef friends that I feel like it's a universal sign that before you use your tongs, you have to do the little clip clip to get them ready. So you do. I feel like everyone just always does that. All right, chicken looking great. All right, so if you are cooking your chicken now, you're probably noticing that you have some little brown pieces on the bottom of your pan. Does anyone know the culinary term for that? Those little brown pieces. We love those. These are like magic gold in cooking. Any guesses? So it is Maillard browning. That is correct. The process of browning our meat, but the little bits on the bottom, the culinary term is fond. So we are fond of fond because those little bits that are crusting onto our pan have a ton of flavor. So we are going to deglaze it in a little bit to really pick up all of that flavor. All right. So that chicken is done. How's everyone's chicken who's cooking along? All right, I'm keeping my pan still nice and warm. I'm gonna add a touch more olive oil. If your pan needs it, go for it before we add in our onion. All right, just a touch of more olive oil here. And we are adding in our diced onion. So again, you should hear that sizzle. That is your applause for you. Your pan is giving you a little applause. One flew out. And you'll see some of the brown bits are starting to pick up a little bit, but we're gonna deglaze our pan in a little while after these onions cook down with our mushrooms. So we got those started. And now I'm going to add in our mushrooms. So it looks like a ton, but these are really going to cook down. So wondering, how do you guys wash and clean your mushrooms? So I was taught in school that you have to take a damp paper towel and kind of just brush them clean. But I was recently, again, my chef friend, we were having a very long conversation about food and different things, but she was saying that she learned that even if you rinse them under water, it still can be okay. But I was always taught that it soaks up all the water and then all that water would be released during the cooking process. So I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are. I always want to do a comparison of two pans and see one that's rinsed under water and one that's not, to really see if that water is being released or not during the cooking process. Oh, Stacy said she has, apparently she didn't know this, but she has a little mushroom scrub brush. That's fun. So I'm going to actually add a little bit of salt during this process. You'll see that all my recipes say salt and pepper to taste, because pretty much as we're cooking, we're seasoning as we go. And this salt right now is going to add two purposes. So one is that it's going to help release the moisture and help cook it more evenly. But also two, we're adding seasoning. And with that, we don't want to make our food taste salty, but the salt is to enhance the flavors in our dish. So we are using a lot of flavorful ingredients here. We want to let those shine. So look at our pan so far. We have a ton of onion. We got a lot of mushroom going on here. So we're starting to make our balanced plate of half our plate being those non-starchy vegetables. Onion, mushrooms, we're going to add in some sun-dried tomatoes, spinach. So it doesn't have to be that perfect balance where you're segregating your dish into those sections. It could be a combination dish where it's all in one pan, but visually, if you were to pick it apart, it should kind of balance into those different categories. So as this is browning, another little thing I want to show you is this fun little demo I like to do to really help understand the process of digestion when it comes to carbohydrates and why it's important to include balance in those other foods to create a better balance of our carbohydrate. So I have a piece of white bread here, just plain white bread, and then a piece of whole wheat bread. And your white bread, they're both carbohydrates, but this one, since it's a whole grain, it has fiber. So what do you think is going to happen when we digest just this piece of white bread alone? What do you think would happen there? What happens is it digests so much faster, and that glucose goes directly into your bloodstream because there's not much there. If the carbohydrates convert to glucose right away, it goes straight into your bloodstream. Whereas now you have a piece of whole wheat bread, and it has that little bit of fiber component in there, and that's going to slow down the process of digestion. So as you slow down the process of digestion, it's not going to push the glucose into our bloodstream as quickly. Now, this alone, still not the best choice, but a little bit better than our just plain white bread. We could add in a slice of turkey, lettuce, tomato to this, an egg, some whatever, to really balance out like that little visual I have to make sure you're getting different categories to balance your carbohydrate. So I have some orange juice here, and I'm just going to pour over both of these pieces of bread. And orange juice is acidic. So is our stomach acid as it breaks down. And right away, my white bread, I can barely pick it up. It's shredding. It's just soggy because it's so quickly digested. Like the acid is breaking it down. Whereas my whole wheat bread, I can still pick it up. It's going to get soggy. It's getting soggy. And it will be easy to break and pull apart. But compared to my white bread, that fell apart instantly. So that's kind of a visual to help you understand why it's important to balance our carbohydrates with some fiber, with some fat, with some protein in there to really have a slower digestion of our carbohydrates. I love that little visual. All right, so our onions are looking great. Our mushrooms are getting nice and tender. Where is everyone in the cooking process who is cooking with me today? Are we at this stage? Kind of give me a thumbs up or give me like a little nod if your video is on, so I can kind of see where everyone is. This is where you can also add some other ingredients as well. Onion mushrooms are ready. Beautiful. Okay. So next step, we're adding in our garlic. I wait to add this because I don't want our garlic to burn. So garlic is going in. And I'm also adding some Dijon mustard. I love Dijon mustard. It adds like that intensity that you're kind of looking for a pop of flavor. And this is just going to coat our vegetables. I'm going to cook that down a little bit. If you have leftover miso from our last class, you could add miso here as well. Just gives it that another layer of flavor, an umami flavor. All right, this is looking fantastic. So our mushrooms should be nice and pork tender. Yeah, they're kind of crumbling there for me. I'm gonna let that go for about maybe another minute or so. If you haven't yet, I am really picky about my baby spinach. I pull off all the little stems. So if you want to do that, you can. You don't have to. But if you are waiting for a step to finish cooking, you can start that. But one thing I wanted to talk about for our baby spinach or any of our greens, they come in these little plastic containers if you buy them this way, or even in the plastic bag. These are called clamshells, but to make them last longer, what you can do is line your container or line your bag with a paper towel. So after I open them and I start using them, I'll actually take them all out, put a paper towel at the bottom, and then put a paper towel at the top, and then store them in the fridge. Because what's going to happen is any of the excess moisture that accumulates within your package, it's going to drip down on your paper towel instead of dripping down on your leafy greens for them to wilt. I know so many people buy leafy greens and then they start going bad so quickly, and this is a way for you to make them last a little bit longer. All right, so I have some nice brown bits at the bottom. Again, that was known as the fond. And I am using a low sodium chicken broth. And what that is doing now is it's going to pick up. You want to scrape the bottom of your pan to that moisture is going to help pick up that flavor. Again, that is flavor. We don't want to discard that. And that's what I love about these one pan dishes is because you're building flavors. They're building off the top of each other because that burnt thing that you think maybe was bad, that's actually good. It's not burnt, but it's like the browning of it. Beautiful. This smells so good. Do you smell the mustard coming through? All right, so I am using a little cream, but this again is not as much as an original recipe that I had. So we're cutting back on the amount. It's still going to be creamy and delicious. If you want to cut down the heavy cream, you can also do like half heavy cream, half whole milk. I've tried it with just whole milk. It's not as rich and creamy as I was looking for. And I've also tried half heavy cream, half yogurt, and surprisingly, that kept it much creamier than just switching to like a whole milk or a low fat milk. So something to consider. So I'm gonna drizzle this in. And we need fat in some of our recipes that we're cooking with. We have the heart healthy fats coming in from the olive oil. But fat will help with satiety levels, keeping you fuller for longer. Also help with digestion, slowing it down. So again, the carbohydrates won't go so quickly into your system. But also fat is really important for fat-soluble vitamins. Vitamins A, D, E, and K are fat-soluble, so they need fat in order for them to absorb. We have some Parmesan cheese that we're adding in here now. And I use the very finely grated. I find it just mixes easier within our dish. sun-dried tomatoes. You don't have to use sun-dried tomatoes. I know not everyone is a super fan of them, but I love them. And mine were already in little thin strips. I didn't realize I bought the bag that they were cut already. But if you need to, just cut them very thin. And they are rehydrating in our cooking liquid. So that's going to be helpful there. And I'm going to add some more seasonings in. I'm adding them more towards the end just so they have that lasting flavor. So they're still there and pungent. So I have some garlic powder and some Italian seasoning. I like to use blends of seasonings, like an Italian seasoning. So kind of takes the guesswork out. Like the lemon pepper one I had earlier for our chicken. All right, and now we're going to add in our spinach. So this seems like a ton of spinach. I'm gonna see how much I can really fit into our pan here. But have you ever seen that like meme online where it's like, you cook all this spinach and then you only have like this much left? It's so true. It wilts down so much. So I'm gonna just start working that in. Oops, I just dropped some spinach. And I actually change back to tongs, I think, in a second. As this cooks down, I'm gonna keep adding more, and our spinach is going to really release some of that moisture and liquid to keep it nice and smooth. And I'm just gonna finish all this spinach. Why not? We want to create half of our plate to be those non-starchy veggies, so this is a great addition. You just want to work these down a little bit. They will wilt. Actually, I can move this out of the way so you guys can see. Your dish a little bit more. Now we're done prepping everything. All right, it's really creamy and delicious. I'm going to add in our chicken now back in, just so it stays nice and warm. Hindsight, I probably should have used a little bit of a bigger pan, but it will all work. A couple renditions that you could do for this. If you want to maybe include more plant-based proteins, you can use some beans in here, like a can of chickpeas or white beans could be a good addition. Oop, lost a piece. So now how can we balance this plate? To keep dinners easy, I'm probably going to be using some frozen quinoa that I have and just thaw it and then pour this right on top. So I have my whole grain, my non-starchy veg, my protein to make a really balanced plate. What I like is that it's saucy enough that it will soak right into the grain that you're using. So you can use some rice. What other things would you maybe want to add this with? Oh, this looks so good. If anyone wants to show me what you made, I would love to see it. Ooh, lentils, edamame pasta. I love that idea, Meg. Such a good idea. All right, I'm gonna give this a taste in a second. I just want to make sure that my chicken is nice and warm. All right, Pamela, actually, do you want to pop on? You can unmute yourself, share your video. Can everyone see Pamela?
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. This was great because this was not my original dinner plan. So this is actually like real time swapping. So I did the normal chicken, I had a red onion, not a yellow onion, and it
Okay.
seems fine. And then I did, instead of sun-dried tomatoes, I did a little bit of tomato paste and just marinara sauce.
Oh,
And
nice.
okay,
I love that. So yours is going to be a richer in color in that red.
yeah, it's definitely red. And then the last swap I didn't have cream. I used sour cream, and it tastes really good. I was a little like not sure about it, but it tastes really good. So
So it's
thank
kind of
you.
like the yogurt.
Yeah.
Did you have any trouble though when you mix it in? So anytime you're mixing in like a yogurt or a sour cream or something, you might want to temper it. But also
Okay.
I learned if you add a little acid to it, it will help and it won't break. So you can add like a splash of vinegar into like your sour cream or yogurt before you add it into the hot liquid.
Cool. Thanks. This was
Yeah.
great.
Oh,
Thanks,
thanks
Julie.
for cooking along. Looks great.
We're excited to eat. It smells great.
Yay. What are you serving it with?
I have some sourdough bread, and then I just did I like microwaved broccoli, so steamed broccoli.
Nice. Wonderful. So that's a nice balanced plate here.
We do
And
a
that's
lot
what
of
we're
frozen
looking for when
broccoli.
we're looking to balance our blood sugars. Half our plate being those non-starchy veg, we have some protein, we have a whole grain, or even maybe you're having a piece of fruit on the side, whatever you want to balance those carbohydrates so you're not going to have that crash after eating a meal. Anyone else want to share or unmute just to see what you cooked up? I see KR unmuted. Do you want to share anything? I don't know if I can hear you. All right, I'm gonna give mine a little bit of a taste here. Oh, I love it. Oh, Lisa, I see you on. Let me see your video. Hi.
I'm here with my daughter Olivia, and she actually was the one who pretty much made this whole thing. So
Yeah, girl.
we'll show you right here. So there's ours.
Oh.
Can you see it?
That looks fabulous.
Yeah, she did a great job.
You are the chef of the family. Good job. Awesome.
I don't have a grain tonight, but we've got blueberries for the side.
Perfect. Love blueberries. That's my daughter's favorite right now too.
Yeah. So thank you.
Thanks for cooking along. So we're gonna wrap up. If anyone else wants to share, feel free to let me know. But after class today, you'll be getting a follow-up email and you'll be getting that handout that I talked about to really understand each food group and how to balance with carbohydrates. You're gonna get this replay as well. So if you wanna make this recipe again, you wanna go back to something that we discussed or the cooking process, you can rewatch that. You'll also have the recipe still. And I'll be picking a cookbook winner. I'll be randomly selecting. So you'll be notified via email, the email that you signed up with the Zoom link. So be on the lookout for that. I think someone just said I have a question. Oh, someone had a question about, is apple cider vinegar helps with diabetes? Is that true? There's really not enough research to show that just consuming apple cider vinegar is going to help balance your blood sugar levels, but incorporating into your diet, great. And it's really about the overall diet, not apple cider vinegar, adding it in, you're going to balance your blood sugar. So there are some benefits, but it's not going to outweigh an overall healthy diet and lifestyle. So yes, this was recorded and you will be getting this follow-up. So I just want to say a big thank you for everyone who tuned in. I really appreciate you coming and I hope to see you in classes for 2024. I do have another one coming up though for December. We are making gingerbread cookies and I'm very excited about this. And I actually have another cookbook giveaway for that one too. So lots of cookbooks to win. But if you have any feedback I'll be sending with the email. If you want to write a testimonial, I'd be truly grateful for that. But also any feedback for what you want to see for future classes. I'm very open because this is made for you. So I want you to learn and have these classes catered to what you want to learn about. All right. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoy your delicious dinner. And if you do make this and want to send me a photo or tag me on Instagram, that'd be great. You can use the hashtag #MadeWithVTK, or I'll share it if you want to even email it to me. All right, bye guys.